Someone offers to help, sincerely. They come over and say, "I can handle part of this if you want." And something inside you goes quiet, then rigid, not grateful, not relieved, something closer to threat. "No need, I'll handle it," you say. People don't understand why, neither do you. Not completely, because it looks like pride from the outside, but that's not what's running underneath. What's running underneath is a control algorithm, and it's been protecting you longer than you've been aware of it. In this video, we're going to examine this control algorithm and the reasons behind it. If you've ever felt that tightening when someone steps in uninvited, type algorithm in the comments, and let's begin. This isn't about stubbornness or pride in the way most people use that word. Research in attachment neuroscience and social threat processing reveals that the refusal of help is rarely a personality flaw. It's a learned protocol, a system that was once the only reliable response to environments where help came with a hidden cost. Today, we're going to look at 5 patterns. Each one is a different output of the same core algorithm. By the end, you won't just recognize them. You'll understand exactly where the algorithm came from and why you've been running it. The 5th pattern is the one that makes everything else make sense. Let's start with the first one. We call this the proximity paradox. Let's examine a familiar moment. Tuesday, 9:18 a.m. Your phone screen lights up. A message from a colleague. "I can put together that report if you need." You've been working on that report for 6 days. The tension from those 6 days has started showing itself in physical pain. Your back aches. Your neck is tight. You read the message again. Then you lock your phone. Not now, you think. Later. Or, "I'll handle it myself." But later doesn't come. And "I'll handle it myself" means doing it alone. We call this the proximity paradox. The closer someone gets to a task that's yours, the more dangerous the situation registers, even when no danger is present. Your anterior insula, the brain region that processes both physical disgust and social violations, activates during unsolicited help the same way it activates when a boundary is crossed. Not because help is harmful, because your system learned to tag someone's proximity to your work as a precursor to judgment. This behavior doesn't come from arrogance. This is a threat detection code written in an environment where someone helping you also meant someone watching you, evaluating you, finding the gap. That proximity response doesn't only fire at work, it follows you into every room where something personal is at stake. You experience this even in simple situations. That's why you try to handle everything alone, and you've gotten used to it. The second pattern operates in a much more personal room. We call this the autonomy threat. You're in the kitchen, your partner finds you still at the counter. "Let me help you," they say, and your body reads that offer not as relief, but as pressure. Your jaw tightens. You keep your eyes forward. "I just want them out of the kitchen to leave me alone." Without showing your tension, in a simple but firm tone, "No, I've got it," you say. They step back. You feel a flash of something inside you that isn't quite gratitude. Psychology calls this the autonomy threat response, and it activates through a specific circuit in the prefrontal cortex. When your sense of self-determination has historically been contingent on performance, offers of help become encoded as doubt. The translation your nervous system runs automatically. If they're offering, they've already decided you can't. You're trying to prove that decision wrong. What you experienced was a rational read of an earlier environment, an environment where help arrived after failure was already assumed, a place where help wasn't an offer, but a verdict that you had failed. So your system learned to refuse the offer before the verdict could land. The shame you attached to that jaw tightening, that stiffness towards someone who loves you, it wasn't yours. It was the echo of a measuring stick someone else held first. Now we're going a little deeper. There's a more insidious version of the autonomy threat. The third one kicks in before anyone even asks. We call this the disclosure firewall. Before we examine this version, if you've ever felt safer struggling alone than letting someone witness it, drop a chain emoji. You've been carrying something for 3 weeks. Not an object, a feeling. You're carrying this feeling not dramatically, just steadily. The weight distributes across the back of your neck, the top of your chest. While sitting with a friend, they ask you, "What do you need?" Words to explain your situation come to mind. Just as you're about to speak, something stops you. After everything you've been thinking, what comes out is, "I don't need anything, I'm fine. If I need something, I'll let you know." You don't let them know. We call this the disclosure firewall. Research in attachment theory traces it to early caregiving environments where emotional needs were either dismissed, redirected, or met inconsistently. The brain constructs a predictive model. Expressing need does not reliably produce support, so the firewall activates before the words get out. It isn't that you don't trust your friend. Your nervous system knows that expressing need will end the same way it always has. A few hollow suggestions and the comfort lie of, I've been through the same thing. The rule you've been running, the one that says staying quiet is safer than asking, was written in a room where it was true. That room no longer exists. The rule stayed. The firewall doesn't just block words outward. It also blocks something inward. The ability to receive help, even when it's offered cleanly, with no conditions attached. The disclosure firewall blocks asking. The fourth pattern kicks in when someone helps you without needing to be asked. We call this reciprocity hyperactivation. Someone helps you properly. You didn't ask, but they did it well, and now it's done. Instead of relief, you feel something uncomfortable, a kind of debt that sits in your chest, dull and uneasy. You calculate immediately. What do you owe? When can you return it? How do you get back to even? You want to repay the debt as soon as possible. The help arrived as a gift, but your system invoiced it as a debt taken on. Neuroscience identifies this as reciprocity hyperactivation, a pattern linked to environments where generosity was transactional, where care came with unspoken invoices, a place where love and assistance were forms of leverage, not freely given. Your brain learned that receiving creates obligation, that warmth comes before the ask. So when help arrives without a visible price tag, your amygdala doesn't relax. It waits for the clause. This isn't ingratitude. Your nervous system sees this help as a contract signed without being reviewed. The anxiety you feel until you've repaid it isn't a character flaw. It's actually a risk management system protecting you from costs that were once very real. The system still runs, but the environment that wrote it is gone. And underneath this reciprocity math, there's something the algorithm has been protecting from the very beginning. The proximity paradox, the autonomy threat, the disclosure firewall, reciprocity hyperactivation. 4 different responses, but the same thing is running underneath all of them. The 5th pattern is exactly that. We call this self-sufficiency identity. Here is what connects the proximity response, the autonomy threat, the disclosure firewall, and the reciprocity math. These aren't 4 separate patterns. They're 4 outputs of one core signal. When you were in an environment where your competence was the primary evidence of your worth, where being capable was the only stable thing, where needing something meant risking the version of you that felt safe, your nervous system built a protocol. Keep the perimeter tight. Don't let anyone inside the mechanism, because the mechanism is the proof. Psychology calls this self-sufficiency as identity structure. Your ability to function without assistance became fused with your sense of self, not as arrogance, as survival architecture. The control algorithm isn't about control for its own sake. It's about keeping intact the one thing that felt certain when everything else was variable, your own reliable capability. None of these patterns are broken behavior. They are extraordinarily coherent responses to an environment that required them. The framework that made you feel damaged for not accepting help was never designed for how you were built. These patterns don't exist in isolation. They're actually all parts of a whole. When these parts come together, your architecture is formed. That architecture is simply this: a nervous system that learned that needing is exposing, and that every exposure has a cost. While most people experience help as neutral or welcome, you process it through a threat detection layer that was installed before you had language for it. That's not weakness. That's an adaptive system running in an environment it was never designed for. The algorithm kept you intact. That's what it was built to do. What it doesn't know, because it can't update without new data, is that you are no longer in the environment that wrote it. The version of you that learned not to need anything didn't develop that way because something was wrong with you. That version was built in a room where needing was dangerous. You learned that every form of help came with a cost. You know that competence is the only stable currency. That room shaped something real, but the algorithm it built was written for a situation that no longer exists, and you've been running it in every room since, including the ones that are safe. You don't need to dismantle the whole system. You just need to know what it is, where it came from, why it made sense then. The rule that said you have to do it alone, that was never about your strength. It was about your survival, and you survived. If this explains something you've never had words for, drop a lock emoji. And if you've ever tried to help someone who refused it, the next video is for you.